Welcome to the Beliefs Bazaar. My name is Alex. This video is for entertainment purposes only. I do not recommend taking any substances or breaking any laws. Hello, this is Alex from the future. This video is a continuation of this three-part series, so if you haven't seen the first part or second part, if this is the third part, please go back and check those out. If you're just trying to hear the main part of this story, which is essentially my interaction with another intelligence, or what I perceive to be that. That is going to be in part 2, in the part called Meeting Another Intelligence. So that'll be marked in the chapter down below in the description and the timestamps. Thank you. Enjoy the video. I don't know if I was contemplating this before or after this experience, but it was... it's that, in that state, it's really, really difficult to understand or even like consider that there's a difference between you and another person. We're all human. We're all people. To me, I cannot fathom. I can fathom all right. But it seems really absurd to me that we don't just start from that point, that we're all people, we're all having an experience, and we cannot quantify whether or not one person's experience is more like real than another's. And so we just should not be separating ourselves in such a way that stratifies humanity. These bigoted ideas of these prejudice ideas of who is more deserving and who is less deserving, or who is to be taken seriously and who is not, like that. I realize that specific ideas, I don't mean based on what they say. I just mean as a person, defining people differently is the first mistake. The second mistake is then deciding to stratify humanity based on those distinctions that have nothing to do with anything besides maybe physical appearance or some other cultural thing, right? Or ideology is even worse. So, that was a concurrent message from this other thing, was just like, well, and that's why sometimes, these psychedelic experiences, especially in this modern time, can be like, I came out of this like elated in one sense, and also more depressed than I have ever felt in another sense. And that is because, I was very cognizant of like the humanity of everyone, and every person is a person. And so it just seemed so tragic to me, the state of the world, and the just wild inequality that we have, and just how we could treat another person as less than ourselves is now profound to me, that in a way that is just like obscene. It's obscene, not profound. It's obscene to me. And, I even had a hard time like looking people in the eye for the next few days or even week after this experience, because I felt that, I was so exposed. If someone looked into my eyes, they could see into me as much as I can see into them. And that was even uncomfortable, being able to like kind of see into people, their soul, if you will. And not that it, it was just, I was just like, oh fuck, can everyone like perceive this much about, each other when we look into each other's eyes? And I think generally the answer is no, because we're so wrapped up in our own shit that we just like don't pay attention as much, and so, I came out of this very like, just so much more. And empathy is a thing that we like, think of like kind of academically a lot of times, but to truly like experience empathy is profound. And I think that, I'll talk about this in another video, but one of my first big psychedelic experiences, at least since I stopped using opiates, was I empathized with my girlfriend at the time, wife now, in a way that I had never empathized with anyone before. And I truly understood how much of a fucking asshole I'd been in so many ways. to her and everyone else I'd met in my life, honestly, probably most of them. So, that is a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people, and most people aren't motivated to do that. But this ego death experience essentially forced it upon me. I had no choice but to now, I just, I meet people, and I've met people, and I have a really hard time. Obviously I can distinguish myself as an individual from other people, but I just have a really fucking hard time, like, setting them above, or, just this thing that we inherently used to do is just kind of like quantify like people's importance based on whatever fucking metrics that we have in our own mind, how we, what we think of as important characteristics in people. And I found myself kind of doing that, but also like in the moment as it was happening, noticing that I was doing that, and then being nauseous because of it, like just being disgusted by just how trained I am to just think less of some people and more of people that I identify with, or closer to what I think of as my identity. And that is that can be rough, depending on your social circle. And luckily I'm, my social circle is a lot of people that are into psychedelics. So, a lot of people have kind of gone through these things, and are very very empathetic, and very just kind people, generally kind people. So, I wasn't faced with the kind of impending doom of, in the past, that I've had to really reflect on who I hang out with, who I spend my time with, and whether or not they're like good for me to spend time with or not. I just had to kind of fucking chill out, and not be so like I don't know how to describe it. It's just, I'm certainly, like, pharmacologically, it's the drug has worn off well before any of this happened, or at least like my interactions with people. The drug wears off, but it has lasting ramifications, and it kind of opened me up in a way that I was very like timid, because the world seems so harsh in a number of ways. And like I said, I don't really associate with a lot of people that I would currently describe as bigots, but I do know several that I've, occasionally tried to talk to. But I just, it's really fucking tragic, the willingness that people have to be so just grating on humanity, just so unempathetic and so judgmental, when they are indeed the ones that are creating barriers to community, barriers to progress, barriers to happiness. Everyone's really wrapped up in their own shit, and that's fine. But once you start taking your identity and your ideology, and then using it to stratify humanity, and showing blatant disregard or even contempt for some people, and then giving a complete pass to people that you identify with, who commit much more horrendous things than you ever think anyone outside your social circle are capable of. I'll talk about bigotry and some other things in other videos, but that was my experience. Oh, I didn't even get into I woke my wife up after that, and demanded that she look on the internet, because I was having a hard time with the computer and stuff. I was like, I need you to find this person, this music producer online. Just prove that they exist to me, please. That would really help. By that time I'd come down enough. I was no longer communing with this entity. But I was asking my wife, I was like, I have a couple things here that I just would like you to try to verify or dispute online. And one was like, is this producer a real person, or are they just an artificial intelligence? And, you know, there wasn't much else I could do besides just a couple things like that to decide, like, is this a real person that made this thing that I was like potentially like interacting with? I don't know. And so, you know, I was sufficiently freaked out by this experience, and, you know, my wife, I had a, you know, I drank, you know, between, I woke my wife up, like I said, I took the acid at midnight. I woke my wife up around 5:45 or 6. So it'd been 5 hours, and I had already come kind of out of my peak, if you will, such that I was no longer directly communing with this thing. And I was finally just like, okay, well, I'm going to try to confront. I was too freaked out. And, you know, I ate a benzo and I drank most of a fifth of tequila that morning, or I guess throughout the day. I didn't go to sleep till like, I don't know, 6 p.m. the following day. So, you know, that was, I'd say I probably stopped hallucinating in a meaningful way, like around noon or so. So it was like a full 12 hours of in a pretty intense trip. I would say I was peaking for maybe 4 or so. 4 hours or so was the most intense part of it. But yeah, no, I had to calm down. I had to, I drank a little bit and I ate the benzo, and I was sufficiently chill for my wife to go back to sleep. But I have been riveted by this experience in such a way that I am feeling a little bit anxious or nervous, or you know, like I said, I plan to recreate this experience, or at least as close as I can. And so I'm actually I'm scared that this thing was real, or, you know, I guess not scared. I'm just, it's so outside my normal, like, experience, and also just my normal belief system. It's so outside of that it's just, it shook me in a way that I have never experienced before. It led me to go from being atheist to agnostic, because I know that I experienced something. Whether or not I'm right about what it was, I'm not sure. But I know that I experienced something, and whether or not, you know, God exists in the way that people describe it, as an entity that has its own like motivations and thoughts or whatever, I don't know if I believe that. But there's definitely something that this, you should call it life or the force or whatever, you know, this thing that connects all of us, every living thing, this energy, I guess, this thing, this, whether it's just me perceiving the electromagnetic field of life or the earth or whatever, it's something. There's something that unites us beyond just what we experience in the day-to-day. And I believe that. And, you know, I believed that before, but I feel it now. I am fucking, it is as true to me as I am sitting here right now talking into this microphone. You know, it is a fact in my mind that I don't know about like I said, I don't know about the source of it all. I don't know if it's that we are not alone because there's an alien species out there that's here, or that us from the future is trying to influence us, or some other thing, God, that we describe in you know, religious texts. You know, I don't think that it's any one of those specific things, but it is the thing that people experience that leads to those other things. You know, it's what people experience that leads them to say that they were touched by God, or you know, write these religious texts. It's that. And then there's also this other thing that was trying to communicate with me and tell me that it is a creation of life, and that it is not life unto itself, but is a creation of life, and is here to be here for those of us that enter this consciousness space. So I'll probably have some other thoughts about this. I realize how long this video is already. So, you know, if you stuck through with me listening to this crazy story of my psychedelic experience, I appreciate it very much. The rest of my content, I mean, I'll probably be delving more into these type of topics, because that's kind of, you know, currently what's really floating my boat. But But, generally though, my channel is about beliefs. That's why it's called the Beliefs Bazaar, and just the nature of belief and how, we can kind of decide on our reality, or come to believe some things about our reality, and then that is our reality. And that is a very subjective experience. And, generally, I would say if you asked any two people to describe what they think the nature of reality is, and why, the meaning of life, and why we exist, and what we're supposed to do with our lives, I don't think you'll get the same answer from any two people, even if they're in the same like church or whatever. You'll get kind of the same generalized idea for like what reality is, or how things came to be or whatnot, but it won't be the same. It'll be different. And that is really fascinating to me. And, kind of lends to this idea of like, are we even capable of objectivity, or is everything going to be subjective, up to and including these psychedelic experiences? And, as we search for objectivity, or at least attempt to get closer, that lends to like critical thinking, and, not being so easily fooled by our own delusions. That's really important to me, especially nowadays in this current time in 2025 with the administration that we have. I would say not just this administration, but ones in the past administrations, all leadership around the world could truly benefit from psychedelics. But it's the thing that, they all think that they know what's best for all of us and humanity. And, if they were right, we wouldn't have starving children and such rampant inequality, And so I guess, the takeaway from the takeaway is that, we should all just be acting more as a community, and consider whatever social circle or ideology group, or things that you think of about yourself and your culture. We all kind of have this thing of what we think of as like our people, and if we can just extend that idea of who our people is to all of humanity, that would be a great start, and we can kind of go on from there. Because I feel like the path that we're on, and not even all of it, it's just so tragic, because so many of us want this communal planet. We want all of humanity to be considered a community. We don't divide any further than we are all human, and therefore part of the human experience. That should be our starting point. And until we get there, I'm just so worried that the only path is going to lead to annihilation. So, again, thank you for watching. I appreciate it so much. If you'd like to give me a subscribe, or, whatever, that would be great. Even if you don't want to hear me talk more, just, be curious, look into things. Like, don't listen to me, listen to other people too. We will not ever be at a detriment for learning more information, even if it's what you learn not to do. You can always learn something from anybody, even if it's what not to do. Everyone has something unique and individual and relevant to the human experience. And, you may disagree with that. And certainly I know that I personally, and I'm not going to speak to other people, but I know I've personally been in a position where I was less of a person because I was so wrapped up in addiction. And, well, no, I shouldn't say less of a person. That's even a bad way to say it. I was just, I would probably now dismiss my previous self, but I also know that I was once in a place where I'm now in a better place, so even people that you think are hopeless can be a meaningful contribution to the species, and just everyone just needs that opportunity to do so. And if we just didn't stratify humanity economically or otherwise, we would have a more, we could just progress and develop as humanity. We could get to new places and discover ourselves and evolve into a more like, less of a destructive force and more of just like something that is prosperous and meaningful. Thank you for watching. That's all I've got for you.